Hello again, everybody. Let's go ahead and continue on with a lecture on Venn diagrams. So continuing on with that topic, and this time we're going to be talking about how we can apply Venn diagrams to real world questions and real world problems. So a lot of times when we have a complex word problem, maybe with a survey that we're taking, we have a bunch of results, something like that. That's probably the most common example. But when we have these complex word problems here, Venn diagrams can be very helpful, and we'll work on some examples of that today. So what we want to be careful of, the main thing is we want to be careful of wording. The wording of these problems can sometimes get very tricky, and with word problems, they generally always tend to be that way. But with these Venn diagram problems in particular, the wording is very important. And one word that is used a lot that I like to bring attention to is the word only. I want to be very careful of how that word is used. I know it's very easy in word problems to just kind of skim over the words that are there and just kind of get a sense of what's being asked and just kind of try and dive right in. But here we really want to be very careful. So let's take a look at an example. That's really just what we're going to do during this lecture. So we'll look at this example here. We've got a whole lot of stuff here, but let's kind of dissect this down part by part. So we have a survey of 500 people, and that's what we're starting off with. In a survey, we have 500 people, and they're asked a question. Cool. I don't even care about anything else. I just want to first note that there are 500 people in the survey. That's probably going to be important later on. So now we're talking about a survey, and the question that's being asked is, do these people have a tattoo? Do they have a body piercing? And since we say and or, we could probably surmise, do they have both a tattoo and a body piercing, or do they have neither a tattoo or a body piercing? So we've kind of got four groups of people here: those with a tattoo, those with a body piercing, those with both, and those with neither. And what we're told here is that 79 people have a tattoo only. And that's important because now we know how many people have only a tattoo. We're also told that 31 people, I'll go ahead and just underline that, have a piercing only. And then we're told that 151 people have at least one of the two. And so what we want to be careful about with this 151 people, that doesn't say that 151 have both of them. It says they have at least one of them. So that's again the wording that we want to be careful about. And we also see the use of the word only in here twice. And that's been helpful as well, because now we know, hey, there's 79 that have only a tattoo. They don't have a piercing. And there's 31 that have only a piercing, and they must not have a tattoo. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a Venn diagram to represent these results. That's the first part of this question. And then once we do that, we're going to go ahead and answer some questions after the fact here. And we'll come back to those later. Let's start off just drawing the Venn diagram. So if we start off this 151, we said we got to be careful about that. We said there's four groups of people: those that have a tattoo, those that have a piercing, those that have both of them, or those that have neither of them. So there's four groups of people. And I'm going to claim that this at least one category talks about three of those groups. So when we say 151 people have at least one of these, tattoo or piercing, we're talking about three groups of people. We're talking about people that have only a tattoo, people that have only a piercing, and then people that have both. And the reason that saying at least one encapsulates all three of these groups is that if someone has only a tattoo, that would qualify as having at least one of a tattoo or a piercing. And likewise here for people that only have piercing. So this group of 151 that have at least one of these characteristics, that encompasses three different groups of people. And what we could figure out here, we could say, all right, wait a minute. So we know that the people that have only a tattoo are 79. We were told that explicitly in the problem. We know that the people that have only a piercing are 100 or are 31, excuse me. And we know that all of these need to add to 151. So the question is, what's this number right here? Well, this should be pretty easy to figure out just with some simple addition and subtraction. What we can do here is we can say, all right, the 151, it better be equal to 79 people that have just a tattoo, 31 people that have just a piercing, plus the people that have both a tattoo and a piercing. Let's just go ahead and call that X right there. Well, we've got a nice little equation here that we could simplify. 151 is equal to 110 plus X. So 151 minus 110 equals X. And we'll just say, hey, look, X is 151 minus 110, which is exactly 41. And so that tells us the number of people that have both a tattoo and a piercing. And if we go back to the question, this should make sense. We've said that 151 have at least one of the two. Well, we've counted 110 people here with the 79 and the 31. So there's 41 left over that must have both of them. Because if they don't have only a tattoo or only a piercing, but they have at least one, you know that it has to be the group that has both. So we've got that right there. That's fantastic. What we also want to be careful about is how many people have neither. And so what we can do here is we can first give ourselves a little bit more space. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's just take a look here now at the number of people that have neither. So we know that there are some people that have only a tattoo. We know there are some people that have only a piercing, and we know that there's some people that have both. And since we surveyed 500 people, if we subtract off all of the people that we've already counted, which is the 79 plus 31 plus that 41 that we just found, if we subtract all those people off, that just gives us how many people we've counted that have a tattoo, a piercing, or both. So that leaves us with just the people that have neither. And so if we go ahead and do this, we, coincidentally enough, maybe not coincidentally, we get 151 people. That's exactly what was told to us before, that 151 have at least a tattoo or a piercing. So when we simplify this down, we get 349, and that's going to be an important number here. That's how many people have neither. We'll say number of people with neither. Right there. Great. So we got number of people with neither. Over here, we have number of people with both. And there we go. So at this point, we're pretty much done with at least creating the Venn diagram. Is all that's left is just to draw it. So let's go ahead and do this. If we draw this Venn diagram, we can start off. Let's give ourselves some nice circles here. So you'll notice that I've got a circle here for the people with a tattoo. And I've got a circle here for the people with a piercing, and they overlap. Oop, looks like a double drew that. Oh, and we're not able to erase here. That's interesting. Let's go ahead and just try making a new page here. All right, let's try this again. So we've got a circle here. We've got a circle there. That's great. Tattoos and piercings. We should go ahead and label that. That's always a good thing to do. So we'll go ahead and say, hey, tattoos. And let's go ahead and just do this. Let's just write a T and a P for tattoos and piercings. Now, we do have people that fall outside of this Venn diagram. If we're going to put the number of people that have a tattoo, and we know that to be 79 people, and we know the number of people that have just a piercing to be 31, and actually, in fact, we also found that the number of people that have both are 41. Right there, we're done right there. So what's left is the people that have neither. And so what we should do is we should put that outside of the Venn diagram. Well, just to be good, what we like to do here is we like to encapsulate all of this in just a nice big rectangle. And we end up saying, hey, this is the universe. So just giving it a label, U, just like I said, labels for T and P for the tattoos and the piercing, we like to label U. And you notice how simple this was. Really, in this scenario where we only have two regions, or at least a two circle Venn diagram, it was pretty straightforward. We were given 79 and 31 in the problem. We did that little algebra to find the number of people that have both a tattoo and a piercing. So that number just goes right in the intersection right in here. And then what's left over just goes outside the Venn diagram, and we keep it in the universe of people that were surveyed. And there we go. This is exactly how we make our Venn diagram. It's very important for these labels. Don't forget those labels. Without those, we won't know which circle corresponds to what. And we also want this big outer box here just to make sure that we're encapsulating all 500 of the people. And that's a great thing that you can do to check your answer here. If you have this Venn diagram, and maybe if you're unsure of if it's correct or not, one simple thing to check if it's not correct is to check the addition of all these. If you add all those up and you don't get 500, you did something wrong, because we should get 500 for that. Now, obviously, maybe you could have, if you do add them up and get 500, maybe you still made a mistake, but at least knowing if you add these up and you got something like 493, you know that you definitely did something wrong there. So that's our Venn diagram. And then just to kind of show that step by step again, I start off here drawing that universe and doing it a little bit out of order this time, but just to show a different way. Drawing the universe first, and then, hey, let's put in my circles, label them tattoo and piercing. Let's put in the obvious choices, the 79, the 31, and the 41 that we've calculated. And then let's not forget that 349 that's there at the end, all the people that have neither a tattoo or a piercing. And so now we've made this Venn diagram. That's great. But remember that we actually have a question to answer. And I've copied that question here. The question is to find the percentage of respondents to the survey that have either a tattoo, a piercing, both, or neither. And so this is fairly straightforward here. We know the number of people that have each of these things. I've listed them again right up here at the top, and we know that there were 500 people surveyed. So if 79 have a tattoo out of 500, we can very easily turn that into a percentage. 79 divided by 500 turns out to be 0.158, which is 15.8%. And then we go on, piercing, there were 31 people. Out of 500 corresponds to 6.2%. Both had 41 people. Out of 500 is 8.2%. And lastly, the 349 people that had neither, the majority there, was 69.8%. And so right there, we've actually answered the question. We've used our Venn diagram to help us with that. In this case, we've been able to just sort of pick out each of these four numbers here right from our Venn diagram, right there. And so just picking out those numbers was nice and straightforward. So there we go. Sometimes these problems will get a little bit harder in two different ways. Sometimes we'll have a triple Venn diagram. So instead of just having two sections, we have three sections. So instead of a tattoo and a piercing, maybe we have a tattoo, a piercing, and plastic surgery or something like that. Maybe something else, sort of altering the body there. Maybe that survey was asked, people that have a tattoo, a piercing, a plastic surgery, maybe some combination of them, maybe all of them, maybe none of them. And so there's a lot more options there. So it can get a little bit more confusing if we have three different sort of circles to our Venn diagram. The other way that these problems can get a little bit harder and a little bit more confusing is in this final question that is asked. Here, it was pretty straightforward. We were just asked, hey, there were the four groups of people, those with a tattoo, those with a piercing, those with both, those with neither. Let's just spit out the percentages, nice and easy there. Well, we could make these questions a little bit harder to say, what's the percentage of people that have neither a tattoo, but they have a piercing, or they have, you know, two of these, or they have none of these, or they have at least or no more than one of them. And there's different ways that we can ask questions at the end once we have our Venn diagram that are a little bit trickier. Even, for example, to take one of those that I said, we could be asked, how many people have no more than one of these? Well, we know that 79 people have a tattoo and only a tattoo. 31 people have only a piercing, and 349 people have neither of them. So all of these groups would fall under the category of having no more than one of these things, one of these sort of alterations, if you will. And so in that scenario, if you're asked that question, you'd want to add up all three of these numbers, and that would be your answer right there. And so that part can get a little bit more confusing. We'll see a handful of examples of those, but for now, that'll be the lecture.